Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to a new episode of One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about episodes 1, 2, and 3 of the Hulu original program, The Handmaid's Tale. This is a tough one to cover. I mean, the show as a whole is kind of tough to cover. This is a show that really challenges you to think. You can watch it kind of on a surface level, but it really challenges you to think about these characters' motivations and why they do what they do and what it must be like to live in this world. Particularly if you're someone like myself who often saw and still does see this country kind of heading in that direction almost. And that might seem a little alarmist, but there's a lot of things going on in this country that make The Handmaid's Tale feel a little bit too real at times. And it's one that's definitely definitely a tough show to take in. It's one that you have to really pay attention, not just because it's difficult to follow or anything like that, but it just really challenges you to look at what's going on here and how you would adapt and what these characters are doing and how you feel about what they do. And right now it's particularly challenging, not just trying to cover 3 episodes at once, but kind of figuring out where I want to start, because there's so many different things put into play in these first 3 episodes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a quote that June gives in, I believe, the second episode, that I think really encompasses the show as a whole, but particularly I'm guessing here, and you'll find that I am going to try to, at times throughout this season, as I'm watching the show, try to kind of like not predict necessarily, but kind of say, okay, I think this is where the show is taking me. How do I feel about this? I think this quote kind of encompasses what I believe this season is really going to look like. And I could be wrong, and if that happens in a couple episodes, I'll readily cop to it. Like, hey, I was wrong. It's fine. But she says, Gilead makes it hard to be good. And I think that statement really is given a lot of weight given the events that take place in these first 3 episodes and how June is directly related to them. Whether you agree with June's actions or not, it's pretty indisputable that her actions are not good. Like, her actions are pretty bad. We end episode 1 with her essentially having this little girl, Esther Keyes, who is a parent minor who is married to a Commander Keyes. She essentially takes her under her wing and encourages her to kill one of these guardians, who she says is a former rapist of hers. Commander Keyes apparently let commanders just come by at will and have their way with her. And that was a difficult scene to watch, but it just as difficult as the idea of having June execute this man on her behalf. And she says something like, "Make me proud," in her ear before that. And like that, again, how you interpret June's actions, that falls on you. But the whole "make me proud" and having someone else do a killing for you, when the vengeance can happen regardless. Well, if you say, okay, this guy needs to be put to death for his crimes against this little girl, you could have literally anybody do it. But to encourage the girl to do it gave me almost like a terrorist kind of vibe. Like she's like the leader of a terrorist clan or something like that. I don't know if that's what the show was going for, but that's kind of what it gave me. And again, it's one of those things where Gilead makes it hard to be good. Like, she's somebody who she just wants to be a mother to her child. That's really all she wants. But she's put in a position to where now she's getting, well, you guys know what happens on the show. I'm not gonna run down what has happened to June throughout the first 3 seasons, but you know how they get down on this show. And all that she's been through has now made her into this kind of person, to where, like, now you're the mother, the protected mother of your child, who you just want to find and bring home and be happy with and have a family, to now you're essentially, I don't want to say brainwashing, because this girl was already way into June from the moment she arrived, but essentially, I don't want to say convincing either, but encouraging. I think encouraging is the best word. Encouraging a child to not just kill someone, but to literally butcher him, which is in line with the title of episode 1, Pigs. She slaughtered him like one. And also this comes on the heels of her forcing Janine to eat a presumably piece of pork. It didn't look like pork, but based on the context of the scene, I assumed it was like a pork chop made out of the pig that Janine was pretty fond of. And I think that you see a lot throughout these 3 episodes of situations that go terribly awry. And there's a moment in episode 3 where Lydia's just like, all this is your fault. And while that is partially false, it's also partially true. And it all comes back to Gilead makes it hard to be good, because yes, everything that has happened is a direct consequence of something that June did. So it's indisputable that yes, everything that has happened bad to everyone on this show, whether it's a handmaid, a Martha, a guardian, a commander, everything that's happened has happened as a direct result of something that June did or did not do. But also, again, she is a product of Gilead. This is not who she was when she got here. And that's something that Aunt Lydia is failing to take into account. Like, yeah, everything that happened is a direct result of something that she did, but everything that she did is a direct result of something that either your people did, you did, or that you were complicit in. So, again, Gilead makes it hard to be good. When I saw that line, I was like, man, that really hits, that really is profound, given just when you try to look at character motivations and whatnot. So we find out that in the escape from the end of episode 3 that 86 kids got out, which is like, wow, 86? Like, that's insane. And I think there was like 9 Marthas or something like that. And they make it to Canada. It's called like Angel's Flight. And we see Luke, who, kind of like a side tangent. I don't really, they got to give Luke something more to do here. Every time I see Luke, I'm kind of like, why is he here? But he had a really good scene at the end of episode 3, or toward the end of episode 3, where he talks about feeling like June made the choice to essentially abandon him and Nicole. And he doesn't know what June has experienced, in the sense of like, he wasn't there, he didn't see it, he didn't feel it, he hasn't even heard it from her in a way that I think would really resonate with him. But from his perspective, as someone who is safe and knows that she had the opportunity to also be safe and chose not to, that's gotta mess with you. And I feel for him in that regard. But I just feel like Luke is just, I don't know, I just feel like he's pretty useless most of the time. Like, why is he even here? But anyway, moving on from that, one of the other things I want to talk about is June's motivation. So June, from my perspective, in the beginning seasons, June's motivation was get out of Gilead with Hannah. That was her motivations. I'm wondering if now her motivations have turned more into revenge, because you look at, again, like Luke, you got Luke here saying she chose not to get out. And yes, we know that she wants to save Hannah, right? But a lot of the actions that she takes, encouraging the girl to kill the commander, the poisoning at the party in episode 2, which the poisoning at the party was probably my favorite scene, like the music and the way like everybody's dancing and they're drinking the liquor, and it's just like everybody's just living it up, and we know that it's all poison, and we're just like, oh man, this is such a sick scene. But doing that kind of stuff, even the end of episode 3, where she helps them break out of this van that's on the way to this Magdalene County, that results in everybody but her and Janine getting killed. Like, everything she does almost feels like it's coming from more of a place out of revenge than as a my back's to the wall, I gotta get out. And in the first couple of episodes, I thought that the show was gonna try to move in a direction to where the other handmaids were becoming uncomfortable with the extremes that June was willing to go to. There's even a scene, I think, in episode 2, where Alma says something like, are you sure you want to do that, or you really just want to just kill a bunch of commanders? Like, she makes it sound like, she even says that, like, it seems like you're just out here to just kill commanders. Like, you're not trying to do anything that's actually beneficial or useful. You just want revenge. And of course, like, given everything that she's experienced, of course she would want revenge. So of course that's a natural thing for a human to feel. But I'm wondering if the show is gonna try to tell us that June is too lost in the fight. She lives for the fight. There's a scene, I think, the episodes kind of run together for me, but I think it was the end of episode 1, toward the end of episode 1, where she arrives at one of the safe houses on a farm. And before I talk about the scene in a little bit more detail, I really thought this scene was shot really well. It was like everything, all the colors were really muted. It looked like a Zack Snyder movie. All the colors were really muted, except for her incredibly bright red coat. I thought it was a really good scene, a really good shot. But she gets up there and she looks like just worn out, right? And the whoever it is that greets her says something to the effect of like, they said, I was told there was gonna be more of you. Where are the others at? She waves down the other handmaids, and in short, she collapses. And the collapse to me felt like I've been pushing myself, I've been fighting and fighting and fighting, and now I feel like I can finally rest. And like her body and subconscious were just like, okay, now we can pass out. And that was that. Granted, she had also been recovering from a gunshot wounds, but I still think that's what they were also trying to tell us. And then there's even a moment later where it feels like she's struggling to get through the pain of her gunshot wound. And I can't remember, I think it was Alma says something to her, and it's almost like she straightens up, like, all right, time to get back to it. It's like she's driven and motivated by the fight, even when there may not be one. And I think that's where they started to build something that I think was intended to make me feel like June is kind of moving to the dark side. And I don't know if that's what they're going for. I feel less that way after episode 3, but after the first 2, I definitely felt that way. Because I feel like they were telling me this. So I'm interested to see where they take June going forward, because she now has to deal with the fact that she's done a lot of horrible things. Like, she's convinced a little girl to kill a guy. She's poisoned a bunch of people. And granted, these are people who are very well deserving of being poisoned. So don't get me wrong. But on the surface of things, just flat out, poisoning people is wrong. We can agree on that. But, poisoning people and ultimately her continued desire to fight got all the other handmaids other than Janine killed. And how is she going to grapple with that? Is she going to keep pressing forward? Is she going to continue to fight? Is she going to feel defeated? It's just her and Janine now. Like, where do they go? What do they do? So I'm curious to see if they're going to continue to kind of have her push the envelope, because now I was thinking that this was going to be a thing where she's going to keep pushing the envelope to the point where she's just killing people just to do it. And the other handmaids will become uncomfortable with it. But now there are no other handmaids. So I don't know where that's going to go. I think there's going to be a lot of talk about the end of episode 3, and I'm not gonna dive into it too deeply, but I will say that the show continues to push the envelope as far as depictions of torture and violence, and I think that is appropriate given the nature of the show. But I also know that it's reaching heights that might make people uncomfortable. So that's kind of just a fair warning, I guess, for me, if you haven't watched it yet, that episode 3 has a couple of scenes that are particularly tough to watch. And I think we as a television watching community have become a little desensitized to some of these things, but a lot of us haven't. And this show is really, really pushing the envelope on a lot of the violence and a lot of the torture. For me personally, watching it, I actually wasn't that traumatized by it, but it wasn't because I'm like desensitized or because I didn't find it to be too horrific scenes. It was because it's coming on the heels of me watching Them, the Amazon Prime series, where Them reached for the stratosphere on trauma. So after seeing some of the stuff that I saw on Them, the stuff that was on Handmaid's Tale was a little bit easier to deal with. So I wanted to get in now into, I've talked about some of the themes and where is June going? How do you interpret her actions? Things like that. And I want to get into some of like the pros and the cons, some of the things that I did like, some of the things I didn't like. The first thing is, again, the cinematography. Like, I talked about it with the one muted shot with the red coat, but like there's so many really sick shots. So they do crazy things with lighting and music to help with the tension and the suspense. There's a great shot in episode 3 where June's being pulled out of this cell that she's being held in. Within the cell, she's put in a box that has holes in it, but she's being taken out of there, and she's in a hallway, and there's like red lights everywhere and sirens, and it's like she gets out to the roof of this building, and it's raining, and they're doing so much with the environment to really help build up tension, and they're doing a great job of that. So whoever's doing the cinematography on this show is crushing it. Except in episode 2, there's a couple of shots that are so strongly backlit that they become annoying for me. And they're brief, but they both happen in the same scene. It's a scene where Moira and Emily are discussing their plans and what they're going to do. Moira's girlfriend comes by and they kiss, and they're shot with a big window with, like, it feels like the sun is literally right outside the window, and you can barely even make out Moira and the woman. I don't like strongly backlit shots unless it's done to purposely silhouette those characters, and it didn't feel like that was done intentionally. Because the scene closes with Moira and Emily sitting at a table, and they're just sitting there, and it's like right before the scene is, they're just sitting there flipping through papers or something like that, and it's so insanely backlit, and I'm just like, why couldn't you just put up a curtain, like, or something? Close some blinds or some shades, or I don't know, find a room that's not by a window. Like, I don't know, that irked me. But otherwise, though, cinematography and, phenomenal on this show. Absolutely love it. The music as well. There's another great shot, and it's at the very beginning of episode 1 when they're cauterizing June's bullet wound, and they're close in on her face from the side. It's a profile shot, and she's laying on her back, cameras on the ground, shooting her from the side, and you could see the sweat all over her face. In the individual beads, you could see it, and her eyes are closed, her eyes open, and you can even see the sweat flicker from her eyelashes in the shot. I'm like, man, that was fucking sick. That was a great shot. There's another cool moment in oh wait, what was it? Episode 3? Oh wait, no, yeah, it was the scene I already talked about, the one with the hallway and the red lights. And I thought that was a particularly good scene too, not just because it was a good scene, but also that was Elizabeth, I believe, directed episode 3. So that's pretty cool too. The little girl, Esther Keys, the white, what a weirdo, but like, man, that girl is crushing it. Like, she's doing a great job of playing that child who has been forced to become an adult and is now like actively poisoning her commander. Like, this girl does a great job. And I'm going to do this very briefly. One of my cons is the fact that I don't know if we're going to see her again. Because at the end of episode 2, she says, take me with you. And June's like, oh, okay, fine, you can come. And I'm like, oh, that's a bad idea. You don't want to take this crazy girl nowhere with you. But, things go awry, and now the girl's captured, and I don't know if we're going to see her again. Now June and Janine are on the run, and I don't know if we're going to see her. And I'm like, that kind of sucks, because I was looking forward to seeing what problems this little girl was going to cause over the course of this season. What else? There's a really good scene, I think, in episode 1 where Lydia's at her trial, I guess, and she's clearly forcing herself to be compliant. Like, you could see her choking down the rage, and she starts to leave, and one of the commanders says, like, handmaids are spoiled whores or something like that, and she turns around, and I'm like, oh, she about to go in. And I mean, she did go off on June, but really good scene. The way Ann Dowd managed to visually show herself choking down rage, and then that the little monologue she gives at the end, I thought was really good. There's a conversation that takes place between Serena and Fred in episode 2 that I thought was pretty good. One of my cons, again, is so far Fred and Serena have been given very little to do, very little screen time. We find out Serena is pregnant at the end of episode 2, and then I don't believe we see her at all in episode 3. So I'm wondering how that's going to impact her relationship with Fred, because they're both clearly on the outs. But anyway, this scene where she's essentially trying to manipulate him into dropping his claims against her, and he realized what she's doing, and she's just like, you used to be really good at making me do what you wanted. And I was like, oh, and then he goes in on her. Really good scene. Again, the party scene that I mentioned before, I thought was, where they poison all the commanders, I thought was really, really good. Probably the best scene of the show so far, of the season so far. And then lastly, I think, and this is the thing that intrigues me the absolute most about this season, and it's a brilliant aspect that I had not considered prior to it happening, but this idea that the kids don't even want this is incredibly intriguing to me. You go through all this to get these 86 kids out of this place that, from your perspective as an adult, is terrible, but from their perspective as kids, they're living perfect, ideal lives. And for them, these are this is my handmaid, this is my Martha, this is my mother, this is my father. And now all of a sudden, this woman I don't know is taking me to another country and is telling me to go live in some other house with some other person who I don't know who these people are. I don't know, I don't want to be here. I don't like it here. And the idea that this is all for the kids, but the kids don't even want this, like what the kids might want isn't even considered, and ultimately is their desires go unfulfilled, like they end up getting something they don't want, I think is a really interesting direction to go. And I'm excited to see where that goes. I really am, because I hope they have something planned with it. I don't know how much you can do with that, but I hope they have something cool planned, because that's an intriguing idea that I like to see them play around with a little bit more. There's a scene in episode 3 where Hannah is in like one of these like a enclosed glass box, kind of like if you've seen the character Joe keeping people in one of these things, but it's like a glass cell. And Hannah's in there chilling, and she's just playing, and she sees June, and she gets scared. And from Hannah's perspective, again, Hannah is away from who she perceives to be her mother. And her actual mother, who this whole show, again, we are coming from June's perspective. So we see all these horrible things from the perspective of an adult woman. And us as adult viewers, we understand how terrible all these things are, but these kids don't get that. So we're coming in with, same as June, like, oh, a reuniting. And then from Hannah's perspective, it's like, I don't know, I don't want any parts of this. And I think that's a really interesting place to take it. And I wonder, again, in concert with how June's actions have affected everything as a whole, and how she's essentially gotten everyone killed, aside from the kids, obviously. But how this is going to affect her decision making going forward. Like, I'm curious to see what her mindset is going to be like in episode 4. Is she going to be more determined? Is she going to be defeated? Is she going to be angry? Is she going to be sad? Like, I don't know. Like, but I feel like June is kind of beyond the mission of, I want to get safe. I want, like, all these positive motivations. I want to be safe. I want my daughter to be safe. Like, right now, I feel like this season is going to become like a revenge season, and it's going to be like a revenge thriller. And hey, I'm cool with that too. So we'll see. I already mentioned a couple of things that I didn't like, but I'm going to talk about one thing in particular before I wrap this up that I really didn't like. And this is where I'm going to ask you all, any of you watching this, to let me know in the comments what you thought about this. Like, am I way off here? Like, was this moment earned to you? But at the end of episode 3, when June meets with Nick before they get to this Magdalene County, she starts to walk away to get on this van, and then she runs back, kisses him, and says, "I love you." Where the fuck does that come from? Like, am I wrong here? Has Nick earned this in you guys' mind? I don't see this for him. Like, what I saw at the end of episode 2 was him capturing her and taking her back. Like, that's what I saw. And he keeps playing it in this thing of like, I'm only doing this to help you, to help stop them from doing worse to you. But you know what he could have done to help her? Let her go. Like, what do you, like, I don't know. That was a really unearned scene to me. Like, I don't see what Nick has done in this season that would warrant that response. I don't see it. And then also, for all the praise that I would love to heap upon Elizabeth for how she directed that episode, she did a phenomenal job. Phenomenal. But that shot of her running back was super corny. Like, and she didn't write the script. So, you know, if whatever the case may be, if somebody hands her a script and says, "Hey, right here, you're supposed to run back to Nick and tell him you love him," that's cool. But like, that scene was so corny, man. Like, gross. Let's see. Is there anything else that I wanted to talk about that I didn't like? Oh, and this other thing too. I kind of want to get you guys' opinion on this as well. I've grown a little tired of the cycle of June escapes and gets recaptured, June escapes and gets recaptured, June escapes and gets recaptured. Like, that makes the future subsequent attempts and recaptures far less traumatic and dramatizing. Dramatic and traumatizing. That's what I meant to say. Dramatic and traumatizing. So This time we open up. Well, we don't open up episode 3. This scene happens later in episode 3, but June is being put back into her handmaid's garb. And it's played like from the way it's shot, the music, everything. It's supposed to be kind of be like, oh fuck, like I feel like that's how we're supposed to be taking it, and that's how I took it, but not in a oh this is so bad for June. I can't believe she's back in this. It's like oh my god, I can't believe I'm supposed to feel emotional again for her getting recaptured for like the 8th time. Like I don't know. I just feel like this is too far. Like it's like if she escapes again. What am I gonna do? Like, I'm not gonna be like, oh, she's gonna make it. No, I'm gonna feel nothing because she's already had the opportunity to escape multiple times, and she's been recaptured multiple times. So if she escapes again and gets recaptured again, it's just gonna be. I'm just gonna roll my eyes like, well, okay, well, here we go again. Like, I'm not gonna feel anything about this on the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th time. So that's getting kind of old to me. Like at the end of episode 2, I'm like, man, I hope she's not like officially recaptured, even though that's what it really looked like. I was like, man, come on, man. Like, let's like it's become very formulaic in that respect. The idea of like, oh, we're out, we're on the run. Do we have people we can meet up with? What's the plan? Yada yada yada. And recaptured, and recaptured, and recaptured. And it's like, oh gosh. So minor, I think, quibbles compared to all the things that I really liked in these first 3 episodes, but that's getting a little bit old for me. And again, I didn't really buy this June and Nick moment, so not the best. But that's all I got for right now. I'll be back next week covering episode 4 and every subsequent week after that to talk about those episodes. And I will see you guys then. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the notifications, all that good stuff. And we are going to talk Handmaid's Tale because this is a show that is worth talking about, baby. This is a crazy one. So leave your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you guys next Wednesday. Peace.